your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News Weekend Edition.
Hello, I'm Naveen Day. Thanks for joining us for a look at what made headlines in Alberta this past week. A former Medicine Hat preacher with ties to Lethbridge and Calgary who was charged with fraud and failed to appear in court last November has been arrested in the U.S. 68-year-old Ronald Aitkins was first charged back in 2013 after illegally acquiring over $35 million from more than 1,400 investors in a real estate scheme, including using retirement savings from parishioners. He then diverted $10 million for his own private investments. The case was delayed for a decade due to multiple factors. According to the Alberta Securities Commission, on the day he was due back for sentencing on November 6 of 2023, he instead crossed into the U.S. from Montana. But the ASC announced on Monday that U.S. officials arrested Aitkins on August the 8th. He is to be transported to Calgary and appear before the Alberta Court of Justice this Thursday. He was initially facing a 5-year prison sentence before his last sentencing date last November. An altercation between two women in Lethbridge resulted in one of them being hit in the face with a hatchet, resulting in significant injuries. Lethbridge police say on Saturday around 9 p.m., a 32-year-old woman and a group of acquaintances had been socializing in the 500 block of Stafford Drive South when a verbal altercation ensued. The argument escalated to a physical confrontation with a hatchet. The victim, who was struck in the face, went to a nearby business for help. She was transported to hospital and police found the suspect a short time later. Tara Many Shots, 37 of Lethbridge, is charged with aggravated assault and assault with a weapon. Two brothers have been charged in a drug trafficking investigation in Medicine Hat. Alert searched a home in the Uplands neighborhood and seized a variety of methamphetamine, opioid pills, and illicit pills with an estimated street value of $20,000. Several weapons were also seized, including replica handguns. 24-year-old Carter Oster and his 21-year-old brother, Ethan Oster, were charged with multiple drug-related offenses. For many, summer is the best time of year to do outdoor activities. However, environmental conditions are not always the most suitable with these smoky conditions, especially for our children. When this is the case, it is better to do indoor activities. Diane Gallagher, projects coordinator with the Be Fit for Life Center at Lethbridge Polytechnic, explains why it is important for our children to stay active and what factors to consider when planning to spend time out.
Physical activity has a lot of benefits for all ages, and certainly for kids, it helps to obviously for their physical health, their cardiovascular health. It's for kids, it definitely helps with sort of mood regulation and energy regulation. It helps them to sleep better. We know that it helps mental health as well. Make sure that, if temperature is an issue, that you're, well hydrated, you're protecting yourself from the sun, you're not overdoing it, that kind of thing. And then obviously with the smoke warnings and stuff, just making sure that you're monitoring any symptoms, if people are feeling irritations in their throat or that kind of thing. The kids have to spend more time inside, and rather than turning that into sedentary time, like how can we keep the kids engaged in more physically activities during indoor time?
The City of Lethbridge's River Valley fire ban remains in effect. The fire ban prohibits wood campfires on city land, campgrounds, and private land located within the River Valley. Bonfire activity has been observed in the River Valley, in addition to vandalism to the fire ban signage that has been placed throughout the area. The Whoop Up Days countdown is on in Lethbridge, and some Canadian legends will headline 5 days of live music at the festival this year. Alongside the headliners, many returning and local artists from different genres and members of the Blackfoot Confederacy will take the stage for an unforgettable week at the Lethbridge and District Exhibition Grounds.
We've heard over and over again that people want to see those bands that don't always make their way to Lethbridge. And so this year, that was really our task, was to go and find some headliners that people would be excited about. And I think that we've done that in having Big Sugar here on the Friday night and Emerson Drive on the Saturday night. Just two legendary Canadian bands, as well as an up-and-comer in Kyle McCurney, who's going to headline on Thursday night. He's a Canadian Country Music Association Award winner. So we just have a really great group of headliners that we're excited for people to come out and see. All of this music and all of the entertainment is included with the Whoop Up Days admission. There's no additional charge. So once you're through the gates, you get access to all the shows, which is really great value.
After the break, stories from around the province. Don't go away. Residents of Jasper, Alberta will be the only ones allowed into the fire-ravaged town when it reopens this weekend. Parks Canada and municipal officials say the entrance to the town will be monitored by RCMP officers who will be turning away non-residents. Mayor Richard Ireland says some of Jasper's 5,000 residents are concerned about visitors intruding on their privacy as they learn firsthand the state of their homes and businesses. A former mayor of Slave Lake, Alberta says strong community ties will be key in Jasper's recovery, just as they were for Slave Lake after its devastating wildfire in 2011. The Jasper community has not been facing the wildfires alone. Jasper has received a lot of support from various parts of Alberta. On this occasion, Colehurst Fire Department also joined the group to support the mitigation efforts. Willie Williams, Deputy Chief with Colehurst Fire Department, explains what support strategy they implemented.
We're helping with structure protection in the town site and the surrounding area. And then we were also working with Wildfire and Parks Canada just outside of town site with hotspots. Kind of patrol the area in town site and surrounding area, Edith Lake, Jasper Park Lodge. I mean, there's a lot of devastation and a lot happened in a short period of time, and a lot of people's lives were affected by it. You know, the whole point is to go up there and help people, and that's kind of what we do every day, even back home. So to go and be a part of something like that, it's a fairly big event, and there's a lot of moving parts to it, and to actually be part of that and help out and contribute to protecting the rest of Jasper was, you know, we felt pretty good about it. We go out, we do the best that we can do. We try save what we can save and help who we can help. The big thing about these kinds of events, and especially, you know, our day-to-day stuff, is the support of our families and the support of our employers who allow us to do that. And I don't think they get recognized enough, because a lot of people left where they were when the calls started coming in, whether it be their jobs or their kids, their families, their wives, and just up and left. And you know, they kind of handle the back end of that for us while we're gone, and without those people doing that, we wouldn't be able to do what we do. So
smoke is causing or expected to cause poor air quality and reduced visibility around many regions of the province, including here in Lethbridge, where we've been under a special air quality statement due to smoke. Many parts of northern Manitoba are also under an air quality warning due to a large wildfire that has forced the evacuation of a First Nation. Environment Canada says the smoke can also reduce visibility and vary hour to hour. The weather agency recommends people stay indoors and avoid strenuous activity, especially seniors, pregnant people, and those with respiratory issues. When you think lithium, you're probably reminded of batteries like the ones in EVs, smartphones, laptops, alarm systems, pacemakers, and other medical devices. So it's safe to say the world will soon need much more lithium to meet the demands of today's technology. The province announced a $5 million investment towards the E3 lithium plant in Olds, Alberta, which they say will help turn the plant into a global lithium leader.
This visionary company is turning waste that is naturally found in oil and gas industry's wastewater, turning it into battery-grade lithium products that can be sold to battery producers and automotive companies, not just here, but around the world. E3's technology takes what is typically considered a waste product and turns it into something highly valuable. With no need for additional fresh water, it will reduce environmental impacts while saving companies thousands of dollars. This isn't hypothetical either. E3's technology has already been piloted and it works. They just need support fine-tuning and perfecting this process before it's applied at a commercial scale. That is where ERA comes in. This $5 million investment will help E3 Lithium test this technology right here in Mountain View County.
Construction on the full-scale commercial facility will begin in 2026. A 24-year-old is dead after being reported missing on Monday when they did not return from hiking in the Kananaskis. Kananaskis RCMP received a report of the missing hiker. Police alerted Kananaskis Emergency Services, who advised that a conservation officer was already en route to the area to locate the trailhead where the hiker may have started. RCMP were alerted that the missing person's vehicle was located. Police authorized a helicopter to be deployed, and by noon were advised that the missing hiker had been located deceased on the western slope of Mount Smuts. The deceased was transported out of the area and taken to the officer of the chief medical examiner. How are things in southeastern Alberta these days? Our next guest has those answers, and he's coming up after this break. Don't go away.
People traveling down that road with RVs and boats and jet skis and all those great recreational pieces. If we can't do it in a safe manner, that's going to really impact what we see from a tourism perspective.
From the aerospace and defense industry to the United Kingdom's military's presence at the Suffield military base, there's quite a bit going on in southeastern Alberta. BCN's Jeanette Roche sat down with the MLA for the Medicine Hat Cypress constituency, which extends all the way down to the U.S. border. While it is confirmed that Highway 3 is going to be twinned over the next few years, she asked MLA Justin Wright if there are any plans to widen Highway 41 south.
You know what? I appreciate you asking that question. Minister Dreeshen was just in the riding a few weeks ago and made an announcement that we are in the planning stages, as well as the partway to the engineering planning for a Highway 3 widening, or Highway 41 widening, in conjunction with the Highway 3 announcement. So what that's going to look like is approximately 52 kilometers from Highway 1. It ends up just going past Elkwater and Cypress Hills Provincial Park, where we are going to be having widening going on down that way, as well as 14 kilometers north of Highway 1 along Highway 41 between the 41 and 41A. That's really going to add to a lot of safety measures and concerns that have been going on down that way. Many of my constituents have had near misses, serious near misses on Highway 41, but also for our tourism sector in the southeast corner. Elkwater and Cypress Hills provide a wealth of economic investment when it comes to tourism and people traveling down that road with RVs and boats and jet skis and all those great recreational pieces. If we can't do it in a safe manner, that's going to really impact what we see from a tourism perspective. And for myself, I sit on on a committee called PENWAR. It's the Pacific Northwest Economic Region. I'm one of the delegates. And we talk a lot about corridors, and I view Highway 41 very much as a very important corridor for trade because it has the potential to connect the U.S. with a direct north-south route, potentially all the way up to Fort McMurray, Cold Lake, Bonnyville area, and definitely the Oyen area, where we're also seeing a lot of oil and gas development still going on.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's great news. Safety first. Absolutely. Okay. So switching gears here, how is the aerospace and defense industry doing in Medicine Hat?
You know what? I don't want to use the word booming because I'm cautiously optimistic that very soon we'll be able to use that wording. But we are seeing such a massive uptick in regards to new starts going on in our region, specifically in aviation, aerospace, and defense. And, you know, I've been kind of floating the idea of trying to get an AAD corridor stretching from Medicine Hat to Edmonton. There's a lot of tech developers working in the aerospace realm in Edmonton, but there's a lot of rocket design, a lot of radar design going on in Medicine Hat, as well as drones. We have a great advantage with our foremost aerial drone range, and that allows for out of sight flying of drones. And we are the only location in Western Canada that has one of those. So it's providing a really key advantage that we can focus on to have this be one of those industries that could potentially backfill the gap that was left from the 2008 recession when we saw the vast majority of oil and gas pull out of the area.
Now, Justin, I believe that you're the provincial liaison with the military. So can you update us on where things are with the Suffield military base just outside Medicine Hat there?
Yeah, so with that, I've been in fairly regular contact with Lieutenant Colonel Anderchuk. They're continuing to evaluate the situation. You know, the British BATIS folks, there is still some stationed there. They're evaluating what the future looks like for them. But I have also spoken with Brigadier General Graham. He has expressed his commitment that CFB Suffield will be one of the jewels, remain one of the jewels of Canadian 3rd Division. And as we are continuing to keep our ear to the ground, we're very hopeful and optimistic for a very positive turn of events for CFB Suffield, as it's very important to our economic area from a perspective of, you know, new people coming in, you know, constant trade over. I look at a number of years ago when the British soldiers would do training exercises, the economic impact that brought to the community. So we're cautiously optimistic for what the future holds, but also in regards to what the future can bring in regards to a evolution of what goes on there.
An investigation into an E. coli outbreak reveals an illegal meat market. More on that after this break. Two of the accused in the Coutts border protests were found not guilty by a jury on charges of conspiracy to murder police officers. This doesn't seem to have resonated within the political class yet, though. Will it? Our legislative reporter and Alberta correspondent for the National Post, Tyler Dawson, has that answer. But first, an E. coli outbreak at several Calgary daycares sickened more than 400 children and their parents last fall. A panel led by Calgary's former police chief Rick Hansen investigated and reported back recently. Tyler tells Jeanette Roche what the investigation found. Take a look.
The one that actually kind of made headlines but was actually sort of adjacent to the daycare issue is that it found that there was sort of an illegal meat trade in Alberta, that there was sort of an illegal abattoir industry and an illegal meat sales sort of, black market, I guess you'd maybe say, gray market, for improperly slaughtered meat. So that was sort of one of the big sort of headline findings that came out of it. But that actually had nothing to do with the daycare. There was no indication that the people who fell ill from E. coli because of the kitchen that was providing food to the daycare, you know, they hadn't sourced their meat improperly or illegally, is what I'm saying. But that was one of the big findings. It was like, oh my goodness, there's, you know, people running illicit uninspected abattoirs in the city, in the province, who are selling their meat. But they did find a bunch of gaps, basically. You know, that there were insufficient inspections at some of these kitchens, that there were sort of cleanliness gaps and inspection gaps that in which these businesses were sort of operating, and that was sort of the root of the problem. And so they made, I think, 12 recommendations and 27 sub-recommendations on how the sort of daycare food industry could be strengthened and made more safe, you know, including more regular inspections, posting publicly some of the information from those inspections for parents to see, things like that. And the government has adopted all of those recommendations, I believe, and says they're working on them. Because it's actually one of the things that I think got unremarked upon a little bit at the time was Danielle Smith, when she gave her press conference about it, she was really quite emotional and showed, I think, a lot of empathy and sympathy and concern about what was happening. And the reason that stands out, I think, is that was one of the things that Jason Kenney was criticized for during the pandemic, for being insufficiently empathetic and insufficiently sort of emotive. And it was one of the early signs, I think, between Danielle Smith becoming premier and Jason Kenney leaving the premier's office, of just how different they are as people and as leaders of the province. And I think, and we saw that again, actually, on the Jasper fires, when Danielle Smith again became quite emotional. So it just shows that some of the, there's lots of differences between Danielle Smith and Jason Kenney, but certainly one of them is their ability to communicate in public and empathize and things like that. So that's one of the things that actually has lingered with me a year later, is that was really a sign of how different those two people are.
Oh, that's very interesting. Not a lot of time left here, but we're going to switch gears to court. So 2 of the accused in the Coutts border protest were found not guilty by a jury on charges of conspiracy to murder police officers. So this doesn't seem to have resonated, though, with the political class yet. What do you think?
Well, it's really interesting because, 2 years ago, this the Freedom Convoy protest, it was all anyone was talking about. I think if you probably went back and looked to what you and I or me and Hal were talking about at the time, it was probably all Freedom Convoy all the time. And it's ended with a whimper, not a bang, if the expression can be used here. It ended in the most normal way with a split jury decision. They were found not guilty on the conspiracy to commit murder charges. They were found guilty on mischief charges and weapons possession charges. But all very normal, right? There was a day in court and a trial and the defense and the prosecution and so on and so forth. But if we go back to that time, Danielle Smith had that infamous phone call with Artur Pawlowski, the pastor from Calgary. There was this whole sort of drama about the extent of political interference, if any, in the prosecution of some of the offenders or the alleged offenders, I should say, from the Coutts border protests. It was a big political story in addition to being a big legal story and a big economic story and all these other things. And the political classes haven't really said very much about it. And, part of it is maybe they learned their lesson from the first time around and thought, well, maybe we should comment less on proceedings before the court. But this case wasn't really even covered all that thoroughly. I think you guys covered it, the Canadian press covered it, but it just didn't get as much attention as I thought it would have because it was such a big deal 2 years ago and such a big political story as well. So it's just sort of an interesting and sort of banal ending in some ways to what was a really, really dramatic part of Alberta's history.
Coming up, there is an Alberta grassroots conservative group which says there should be a leadership review of our premiers every couple of years. Sometimes there are groups which try to influence a political party's policy one way or the other. A new group has been formed in Alberta which is trying to do just that. It is called the 1905 Committee. Co-founder Nadine Wellwood explains why she felt the need to start up her organization.
1905 is when Alberta became a province. And when we were trying to find an appropriate name, I kept emphasizing, what if we could do it all over again? And then we kind of thought about, well, the beginning and where we're going. And 1905 Committee is what we came up with.
So tell us a bit about your background in provincial politics and explain why you felt the need to start up the 1905 Committee.
Absolutely. So my background provincially started actually from a federal perspective, and I had started doing some work with the People's Party of Canada in 2019, 2021. And then when Danielle Smith was elected the leader of the UCP, I thought we would see some true grassroots changes there. And I decided to throw my hat in the ring, actually for the Livingston-McLeod riding. And I was disqualified, regrettably, by the executive at the UCP. I guess I have very strong opinions, and that's not always popular with party politics. I'm not, I guess, as easy to control as they would like. And from there, my background is a chartered investment manager. So I've been obviously following economics for at least 2 decades. And of course, politics drives a lot of the economy. And so when politics sort of arose as an opportunity for me to get involved, I took kind of my background and meshed that a little bit with what I have been learning over the last 6 years. And thus we looked at what was missing, truly missing in the space as far as true representation by the people. And 1905 was born.
So Nadine, what are some of your core goals with the organization 1905 Committee?
So some of the core goals, really, I'd say that if you had to pick one, it's about leadership accountability. A promise made needs to be a promise kept. And it doesn't matter who I speak with from any different political background, they all agree that if you're going to campaign and you're going to run an election, you need to follow through once you've been elected on those promises. And so one of the policies I probably would think our most popular policy that we are now currently pushing here in the next UCP PM is leadership accountability. So you have 24 months to fulfill your campaign promises, verbal or written, doesn't matter. You made a promise, you have 24 months to keep it. If not, you go back to a leadership review, and now you have to account to the people who elected you as to why you did not fulfill those promises. So if there's one area I think that everybody can agree on in this province is we need more accountability from our government.
Nadine, you just recently launched. What kind of interest has your group been generating so far?
We have generated quite a bit of buzz, actually. There's been a lot of talk, a lot of speculation, a lot of rumors, people trying to figure out how we fit into the political spectrum, which is great for us because, of course, it's really gotten the word out there. People know we're here and we exist. So it's been a lot of fun, very exciting. But the reality is, we've got Edmonton's attention. And I think that's really what we've been trying to do. And we are attracting people from all different political spectrums and all different backgrounds. Obviously, we have more of a conservative focus, but the principles, we are about principles and policy. And because we're about principles and policy, we really do appeal to a lot more people in a very unifying kind of way.
So what is your current view of our Premier, Danielle Smith?
I think Danielle Smith has done some things well, but I think there's been a lot of campaign promises that have been made that just haven't been kept. And I think there's been some, in my opinion, poor judgment decisions made. We did a Redford survey poll, and a lot of people didn't agree with the fact that she appointed Alison Redford to a Crown Corporation. Of all the people in this province, as far as even conservatives, I think Alison Redford is one of the least liked. And I think that was a poor judgment decision on her part. She's promised tax reduction. She hasn't followed through on that. For me, it's about priority. If you're going to, talk about a high-speed train between Calgary and Edmonton before reducing taxes, as you have promised in your campaign, I think, again, that's a lack of judgment.
After the break, we chat about vintage cars. Stay with us.